First and foremost, took the film on Sunday. The part that I thought our guys, I gave our coaches and our players, they invested a lot last week in the preparation to go over there and give everything they could. Liked our work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. First half was one of those things that just couldn't get out of that field position battle, and again, it kind of unfolded as we talked about after the game. But in retrospect, there were a lot of guys that you get caught in the moment. You don't realize how many guys had to pop in there. To lose Yelda, to lose Austin Cantrell, two of your more formidable players on offense, have guys step into it. I thought Will Gregg, in addition to Jeremy Patton, really stepped it up, and Jack Krause. It was actually a blessing to get Jack back out there. He'd missed a couple games of concussion, so that was there. We just got to continue to find more players, and give us better relief in the second half, and do a better job as coaches as well. From an injury standpoint, unfortunately, the most significant, Ty Clary, is probably looking at a 6-week recovery. He sprained his MCL. Nothing surgical. Fortunately for that, nothing surgical, but unfortunate that it takes a long time for that baby to repair. So the MCL will get itself back in there. Yelda, it's the other ankle. It wasn't the ankle that he injured earlier in the year. It was the other ankle, maybe a little bit more significant, but do expect him to get back later in this week. Don't know if we'll have him for practice tomorrow, but expect him back out there, and I know he's doing everything he can. Austin Cantrell, all the x-rays and all the further tests were all negative. He did suffer a significant bruise on the outside part of the knee, which made it real tender to plant and drive, which prohibited him from coming back in. We kept C.J. O'Grady at home last weekend, so he was able to actually stay here, get treatments with some of our medical people here during the course of the weekend, and is, I think, full go, going to be back with us tomorrow. Looked good yesterday, was popping around. So those four significant guys offensively, and then also on defense, Drake Coley was cleared for the game. He played a little bit of a horse on special teams. I think just the way the game unfolded, Paul didn't put him in there, but should be all right this week moving forward, as healthy as he's been the last 3 or 4 weeks as we got going. So Austin, really no issues. I grabbed him on Sunday, said, how do you feel? And he said, really the only soreness I have is in my legs, just being out there running around and playing a game as long as he did. That was really the only thing sore, nothing significant in the shoulder, and I think he'll be back better this week more than ever. Then obviously in the same room, non-injury, but obviously the news of Cole Kelly. Here's where I'm at. One of the things I put out there yesterday, I hadn't even been able to talk to Cole or his parents yet, so I just obviously put out news that we were made aware of it. He's got a court date on Wednesday. He's indefinitely suspended from our program this week. He will not be involved with us and will not play on Saturday. He's got a court date on Wednesday, depending on the information out of there. He's been pretty honest and upfront with me all the way through. Obviously, there's court proceedings going on, so I won't comment about the specifics other than he's very disappointed. We were disappointed. It's a learning lesson that I hope he takes full advantage of, as well as our team. When it happened on Sunday morning, my first reflection is he safe? Is there anybody else involved, and is there everybody safe in the entire incident? So that was a positive, but obviously something could come very, very negative out of those situations. So an awareness factor there for our guys. The part that I think he has to understand is, not only to be an Arkansas Razorback, but be a quarterback that started games here is a very, very big deal. And social media and everything else around it, he's going to be held to a higher standard. The blessings that you give can also be your biggest burden. So he's going to have to do a lot of growing up in a short amount of time. Had conversations with his parents, and we're all on board moving forward. For however long this suspension, through this week for sure, through Saturday, I think he's got to understand what life can be like without football. And also address all the other issues. If he does all that, we'll kind of address it at that point moving forward. So really, other than that, we jump into our Mississippi State preparation. I'm sure a lot of you, as well as myself, came back Saturday night, watched that game, and watched them go toe-to-toe with Alabama. And a really, really good football team. Our quarterback is a very, very talented player. We've known that competing against him. They've made a tremendous spike on defense as well from a year ago with the new philosophy, new way of doing things. So very tough task on Saturday, but excited to be back home. And I've really tried to emphasize and I think our kids have bought into it. Everybody wants to jump to, the possibility of 6 and all that goes into it. The only way you get to 6 is to get to 5, and that's Mississippi State this week. The only thing we have in front of us is our preparation for tomorrow. We'll focus on that, get to Wednesday, get to Thursday, get to Friday, and then 11 o'clock kick on Saturday. So with that, open up for questions.
So Cole's not in meetings or practice or anything?
Who's that, Cole? No, he was yesterday. It was all just coming so fast. We started our meetings. I wanted to keep him. I kind of wanted him to face everybody, to be quite honest. It would have been easy to throw him out of the building yesterday, but I wanted him to have to be around, have to answer questions, and then from this point where we made the decision after talking, I didn't get a chance to talk to his mom till early this morning, so yeah, he won't be involved in anything here in the building this week. Oh, absolutely. When we remove anybody, we commonly do that. Sometimes you guys know about it, don't know about it. Sometimes kids are redshirted, so it doesn't become a story. But we never take away 3 things. We never take away academic support, never take away medical support or anything that go into it, and also the services that we provide for them here in the building.
Bret, the Mississippi State game, just opening thoughts about how they're looking and how they play Bama.
Yeah, the one thing about Dan and his crew, they kind of just stick to their, their way of doing things. Even when he had Dak and obviously now with Fitzgerald, they just very, very good at what they do. They understand sets, they understand looks. They try to get you in certain formations to get matchup issues. When their quarterback is playing well, they play very, very well, and that's kind of been the case, for them this year. Again, to be in our environment, to be in a crowd, hopefully that'll be a little bit loud, a little bit excited, would be a good thing for us overall.
Looks like they lived and died with the blitz and helped them some, and then they paid it at the end. What do you think the same stuff might be coming?
Yeah, I think that there was a little bit more in that game than others, and I think anytime you play Bama, I think one of the things you realize when you're studying that film or who's playing against them, that there are some changes that usually go into that game. People just approach them a little bit different. But yeah, they overloaded certain sides. They brought good pressure, took advantage of some looks down the field. They were able to run the ball effectively a little bit. So there's definitely the time of possession was a huge factor in that game.
I know the coaches don't do this. It's a brilliant media mind. It seems like at SEC Media Day, states always pick last or next to last. They almost always do better than that. Well, do you think they're just kind of one of those underrated programs to maybe start those kind of isolated? Or
Well, Dan's done a tremendous job there. Last year, you look at one of the things, obviously, the situation that we're in. All right, we're a 4-6 team. One of the things that we got to move forward. We got to go forward, and they're a team last year. I remember when we beat them. Because of that game, they were cast into a 5-win season, which actually put them in the bowl in Florida, which they had success with, that propelled them to where they are today. And a sign of those things that can come. But yeah, I think just overall they got good players. We compete. We don't compete much in Mississippi, but we compete against Mississippi State quite a bit in outlying areas. In Texas, Louisiana, Florida. So we know the type of players they are, and obviously the results they get.
Do you think some of your defensive guys are just taking too many snaps, or they are playing more snaps?
We'd like to get depth. This is a big weekend for us in recruiting. We got a 11 o'clock kick, which is actually good for us in recruiting. We have quite a big number of defensive players that'll be in this weekend that could impact us in a short fashion. So it's an exciting weekend for that. But I think what we've realized is as you get deeper into this thing, when it's just one guy here, it's one guy there. Its effect overall, it takes place with special teams, but also in the duration of the course of the game, and that unfortunately is wearing on us way too much. Yeah. Anytime you have the ability to throw and run, I mean, he can do both well. He's got a strong arm. They got great concepts. He's a big guy, so he's not just a one-on-one tackle. You can't just assume that just because you have someone assigned to him that it's going to be a down ball. He can really do some special things in the run game. Very composed. I know there was a picture of him Saturday right during the game where I believe he scored a touchdown and he was thrown up over on the sideline. For whatever reason. I mean, he's either engaged in the game, got hit, whatever it was, but he didn't show any signs coming back in the next periods. I think he's just a very tough competitor, and you can tell the way Dan talked about him early in his career that he was excited about where he can go, and it's evident in his play.
Your downfield passing hasn't been as
Yeah.
What are the causes of that, and how much are you missing being able to do that?
Yeah, well, first we got to connect on when we got them, and if we got to throw the ball a little bit more vertically, we have to. There was a little bit of both on Saturday. I know there was a couple as well in the Coastal Carolina game, but it's one thing to have those shots, and you definitely want to take them. As a defense coordinator, I always used to chart how many shots go past 20 yards. That you have to have an awareness of that you're trying to defend, and the number of times that happens. And for us to get the respect, to maybe loosen up the coverage a little bit that could help us in the run game, we definitely have to have X number of shots down the field, and Dan's done a great job of that over time, and obviously we have to connect on them.
What's your take on, do you know Todd Grantham? What do you think he's done?
I don't really know Todd. I just have tremendous respect everywhere he's been. He's not a guy. He's not a guy that brings attention to him. So, some guys are self-promoters or whatnot, and he just seems to be a guy. Throughout his history, just goes about his business. Several people that have worked with him, against him. You see his product, and it's very, 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 very sound. It's not just throwing up a lot of different schemes and whatnot. There's a method to it, and very respectful.
Some of the throws that Austin missed Saturday, is that a product of maybe just missing 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of everything. You also work with the receivers, so maybe, take a routine one. There was two jumped out in my mind, the throw to TJ was just a little bit behind, and if you hit it clean, you maybe had a bigger play. But then there was a play, if you guys remember, Dion was dragging across the middle. It was a first down catch, but if he hits him in stride, it can be there. And the fortunate thing, I've seen Austin throw those balls a lot. I've seen him have great success, so you feel it's there. But I do. That was the first time he played in a long time, and it's not exactly the most easy place to cue into, and especially when we started him backed up. But I think you'll see a big spike in him this week.
Will Greg, I guess, got added
Yeah.
with O'Grady out and Cantrell. What do you think of Will, and could he play a bigger role?
I do. I've liked Will since day one. I think he had to go through some things, but he's been absolutely awesome from week one to where he is. Just kind of lines up, does business. I've thrown him in on some special teams. What I was really happy for him to see, he was anxious to get out on that tight end screen route. He was a little quick, but made some really nice things happen with the football, set up some nice blocks. Redden was great with ball security. I think Barry's very, very pleased with his growth as well, and the good news is I think you're not even beginning to see, he's a little bit leaner than when he came in. He changed his body, and I think you're not even seeing close to what he could be.
But on a personal level, how do you keep from allowing what may or may not happen after the season to sink into your head?
Well, I get the question, but I don't think that way. You just focus on the task at hand. It's probably a little bit easier than I don't think there's any doubt of what we're doing. So, I mean, that's just when you talk to recruits, when you talk to the players, when you talk to the parents, people obviously care about you, say certain things, but it's full goes, full speed. Never seen anything to tell me different. I know what we've built. I know what we can be. It was kind of on Sunday, I always try to take a look at what our two deep is going into this week, and just the amount of volume of players offensively and defensively they have. Our freshmen and sophomores is awesome, especially defensively. To have so many seniors that'll be back next year, it's an exciting time.
Butch was another one this weekend that kind of went in the SEC. Have you had any talks with Jeff about your future, or maybe your representation that you know of?
No. Butch, Tennessee, and everything that those guys. I remember when we were back up there. What was that? 2 years ago, 3 years ago. There was discussions then. So it's a different program. It's a different feel. It's a different thing. I think the part that we do here is we try to do our best as we can every day. Know that wins got to come. I get it. I understand it. I know we want to have a lot more wins. I want to have a lot more wins. Our players want to have a lot more wins. Administration, fans, everybody. And we'll get there. I really, I know people don't want to hear it, but the things that our kids have battled through and the way that the kids have responded to the adversity that they've been hit in the mouth with, especially, again, during the course of the game, there's no flinch, there's no regression. They're just, hey, next man up, let's get through this, and we'll persevere. And that's a really fun group to work with, and when we get over that hump, that'll make it that much better.
You mentioned the recruits. You're still looking at that 15 to 18.
No, it's probably going up a little bit just because I think we'll have some guys that have early grad. Next Saturday we'll honor seniors, and there's probably as many as two, maybe even more guys that not significant guys, not guys that are in the starting lineup, but guys that maybe have been backup players during their career that could possibly get out of here and might explore that option. So that the number might increase. I think we can get probably up to a number of maybe 20 guys.
Ty Storage, obviously, your backup.
Yeah.
How do you feel about him? Yes.
Yeah, you know, so he got a lot of reps last week. You know, Cole, like I said, got limited reps on Wednesday, so Ty got all the reps on Tuesday, half the reps on Wednesday, and then took all the reps with the twos on Thursday. Had a package for him that if Cole wasn't able to go, he was going to take over that look. Ty's got a lot of talent. He's an engaged football player. Probably no one better with a football IQ or understanding of our offense. So, you know, Dan and I both discussed, you know, that if there's a way to get him involved in the game, we'd like to do that. But just to keep his spirit going. But, you know, in big picture thinking, you know, like I told Ty and Cole at the beginning of the year, and then when we made the decision to go with Cole, obviously when Austin got hurt, no matter what happened with Cole and Ty during the course of the season, when we got to the spring, it was going to be an open battle, you know. Told those guys back then, you know, they both have tremendous upside and got a great deal to do. Now, Cole got some valuable experience, there's no doubt, but going into spring drills, those guys will be in an open competition.
You guys have gone over 100 points combined the last 2 games with Mississippi State. What has gone into such high scoring affairs?
Well, execution. Maybe defensively we didn't execute the way we needed to, at least on our end. But it's just been kind of one of those games. And I think back to the year before that, though, it was a real low score, right? And if I remember right, it was the last time before we went. Maybe it's been 3 years ago, but the last time we were over there, before this last time, it was a little bit of a low score, at least late in the fourth quarter. So it's just all these games. I think as soon as you start thinking that you're going to have a low score, it becomes a high score. As soon as you think it's going to be a high score, it turns into a little bit of a little different look. So that's life in the SEC.
So it was 17%.
Yeah, good job, human encyclopedia.
These 11 a.m. games, you had several of those. How do you feel about those? And does it
Yeah.
routine that you've been doing?
I think it's been well documented, you know. Yeah. So my first year as a head coach, we went 12-1, and all 13 games were at 11 o'clock. Every one of them. So I was indoctrinated early on. In the Big Ten, they're a little bit more prevalent than they are here. But when we got here, we went for a stretch here. We didn't have one for a long time. So really, the only thing different, we bring them over early on Thursday mornings. It's a little bit obviously earlier wake-up call on Saturday, but the game time our meal is still 4 hours out from kickoff, so we'll have a meal about 7. This is at 11:10, so we'll have our pregame meal around that 7:15 range. Again, for us in recruiting, it works out. Just when you get a kid here on campus, it's actually those 11 o'clock games are good because you can get a full day with them on Friday, and then after the game on Saturday, you got a lot of potential to be with them and their parents. So, you know, everybody would probably say 2:30 is ideal, but from a logistics and working environment, 11 o'clock's pretty on time. You get to that 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, when the game's done, everybody's already, you know, it's by the time the coaches get done, everything's out the door and a little bit limited. So the 11 o'clock game is very functional for us.
Brett, everybody in the SEC West expects to win right now.
Yeah.
And because Mississippi State has been playing well the last few years, it makes it extra tough, I suppose. What is it like being a part of that?
Well, every week is what it is. You know, you see stats. I remember my first year, the stats, and I saw the second year. And then during our bye week, someone put out, I saw during my 5 years of being here, we have the #1 rated toughest schedule in the SEC during the time since I've been here. #1, SEC East and West. Somebody's got to be #1, I guess. So it is what it is. It obviously doesn't make life a little bit easier, but you play the schedule that's in front of you. I came into here expecting to do what we're going to do, and the matter of circumstances are what it is. You know, sometimes strength of schedule and all those things depend a little bit about your non-conference, who's playing well at the time, and all that goes into it there. But to battle the way we have, to put the product on the field, to have our kids, you know, it was a big deal to hear about Cole on Sunday just because it doesn't happen very often. You know what I mean? And for me as a head coach, that means something. It means a lot. It means a lot to our parents. It means a lot to the people that support our program. And that's the things that probably keep you going.
It was a tough weekend anyway with the game, and then you hear about Cole, you just think like, oh man, what else can
Yeah, I get it, you know, but on the same account, as a head coach, you can't really flinch more and, you know, just reading it, get that initial feeling, okay, what do we got to do? So, I mean, literally had to hop on, you have to notify the people, have a plan of attack, what you're going to do, how you're going to handle it. I mean, it really just, you instantly flip that switch to go into what you got to do, and obviously plan out our Sunday too, because we meet with our players on Sunday, so how we're going to, I kept them in the building on Sunday because I wanted them to be around our guys, you know, I wanted them to see them and face them. And I didn't actually get a chance to see him until after our team meeting on Sunday to discuss what we're going to do move forward. So a little bit gets to be timing, but it's one of those deals you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it quickly, understand what the situation is, and capitalize on the learning moment.
So you finally got some feedback from him, having gone through the day talking to his teammates. How's he?
Well, he was very quiet. One of the few times I've seen Cole quiet, right? And he's going to handle it the right way. I think he agreed to all the terms that I laid out in front of him. When you're in these positions, I think the biggest thing, like I said, is you have to take it and run and learn. You know, sometimes when you're 19, 20, you don't feel like you got to hear these lessons, and I want to make sure they absorb it and learn it. Again, great discussions with his family, and Cole has a very bright future. And I want that, you know, this shouldn't be the definition of his career. This should be one of those moments that shows who he is. You know, I encouraged him to take the next opportunity and the rest of the opportunities that lay in front of him over the next 3 years to define what his reaction is to this moment. You know, and these things pop up. Like I said, fortunately, they haven't popped up a lot in our program, but it is what it is. We have to address it and move forward.
I think this will be your 62nd game at Arkansas, will be your 31st against a ranked team, so that's exactly 50% of your games.
I do love the math that you do. Yeah, I think that's the part that probably, if you could just put people to grasp that, that's the toughest thing. And I tell you what, in recruiting, you sell it. You sell that so much in recruiting about what you're able to come here and do. Like, again, these kids coming this weekend are players that will be able to play immediately, you know, either JC transfer or somebody that can be eligible to come in January, and you sell them on the effect that they can have in a short fashion. And I think that's the part. You can't sit around and say, "Well, it was me about it." You got to use it as a selling point, and that's what we've been able to do.
When you look at the defensive plays the last couple of weeks,
Yeah. There's, you know, there was 3 big plays that really sealed our fate a little bit in the second half, and yeah, they were a little bit. I think you know, Paul's going to be in here in a little bit. We'll be able to share with you. I think a little bit of a scheme, but also a little bit of technique, a little bit of a individual correction on a certain play. Credit to the offense for them being able to get it, but it's just tough when you see the tale of two. And actually, in the first half, the field position that our defense took over, the way they battled through that, and only. To come out of there as a 7-7 tie was a true credit to him. But again, football games don't last 30 minutes; they last 60. So we got to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, so was that a bad game for Blake Johnson?
What's that?
Blake Johnson, was that a bad game?
For Blake? Yeah, what I think we had 7 punts, right? 3 were above or beyond what, you know, we have a certain number that Barry gives them that is pretty real, but 3, and there was 3 that weren't, you know, and coming off the heels of the week before to drop one, I mean, he's a kid that's got, again, tremendous upside. We have to get him to be consistent. I don't need a punter that can hit it, you know, 2 out of 4. I need a punter to hit it 4 out of 4, and he's young. Again, there's another sophomore that has got he's very, very talented, but he's got to come through and become a more consistent performer on every opportunity. What's that? Patrick did, yes. I think talking about my shave. I was like, oh, no. Thank you.
He told us about that the other day.
Yeah. Double wisdom.
Yeah. My guy wants me to do that too, but I don't know. Plenty of wisdom. Oh, that's right.
One of those trays. Nice work.